The iCarly reboot didn't end the way most people expected at all. When it was first announced, it honestly felt like one of those rare reboots that actually had a chance to work. It wasn't just for nostalgia either. It felt like a real continuation of a show that defined a whole generation. Seeing Miranda Cosgrove back as Carly again instantly brought people back to that early internet era that made the original show so iconic. But then something kind of strange started happening. The reboot didn't crash loudly. It didn't end with a huge announcement or dramatic send-off. Instead, it slowly reached a point where it just stopped continuing. And the way it ended left a lot of viewers confused, especially because it felt like there was still more story to tell. So the real question becomes, what actually caused that to happen? To understand why the reboot didn't last as long as people thought it would, you kinda have to go back to what it represented in the first place. The original iCarly wasn't just another kids show. It was a full internet era moment, and it mixed random humor, online culture, and character-driven chaos in a way that felt completely unique at the time. So when the reboot was announced, people didn't just see it as, oh, they're bringing back an old show. They saw it as, wait, they're actually bringing that era back? That's why expectations were so high from the beginning. It wasn't just about continuing characters, it was about recreating a feeling. But that's also where the first major challenge showed up. One of the biggest differences right away was that the original trio wasn't fully intact anymore. Jeanette McCurdy, who played Sam, didn't return for the reboot. And even though the show continued without her, that absence quietly changed the entire dynamic. Because Sam wasn't just a side character, she was a huge part of the energy that made the original show feel unpredictable and fun. Without her, the reboot had to adjust its identity. It wasn't the same chaotic trio anymore. It was a different version of iCarly trying to exist in a slightly more grounded adult space. And that shift matters more than people realize, because once a show loses a core dynamic like that, it has to rebuild its tone from scratch. As the reboot continued, it started leaning into a more structured, almost adult sitcom style. Instead of random chaotic internet sketches like the original, it focused more on relationships, personal growth, career changes, and emotional storylines, which isn't bad, it's just different. But that difference also meant the show wasn't built for endless seasons the way traditional sitcoms are. It had more of a story arc structure where once certain emotional beats were completed, the show naturally starts to feel like it's reaching an endpoint. So even without any external issues, the format itself already limited how long it could realistically run. But even with all that in mind, there's still one thing that makes the fans stop and go, okay, but why did it end there? Because at the end of the reboot, there's a moment involving Carly's mom showing up, a storyline that immediately feels like it's setting up something bigger. It doesn't feel like a finale moment, it feels like a setup. Like the show is basically saying, okay, now things are about to get interesting. And that's exactly why the ending feels so strange in hindsight. Because instead of wrapping everything up cleanly, it leaves a lot of viewers in a place where it genuinely feels like another season was coming, but it didn't arrive. No immediate continuation, no follow-up season, no closure episode that revolves that storyline, just silence. And that gap is what creates most of the confusion around the ending. So when people ask why the reboot didn't last very long, the answer isn't really one dramatic reason. It's more like several smaller things lining up at the same time. First, it was always designed more as a nostalgia revival than a long-running reboot. The goal wasn't necessarily to replace the original show, it was to revisit it, to bring characters back into a new setting, and to see how audiences responded. Second, the cast dynamic had already changed significantly, especially with Sam not returning. That alone shifts how flexible the show can be long-term. Third, the storytelling style itself leaned more serialized, meaning it naturally has fewer infinite episode possibilities compared to the original format. And finally, streaming platforms constantly shift focus. Shows don't always end because they fail. Sometimes they just don't get continued when priorities change. So instead of one big dramatic cancellation moment, it's more like a combination of timing, structure, and direction all meeting in the same place. But even if all that explains the why, it still doesn't fully answer the feeling fans were left with, because that ending still feels like there was supposed to be more. And that's where things get interesting, because now you have to separate what a show planned versus what actually got produced. One of the biggest differences with modern streaming shows compared to older TV is that endings aren't always fully locked in from the start. Traditional shows often had planned final seasons, structured finales, or clear endings built into contracts. But streaming series don't always operate that way. Sometimes a show continues based on performance, timing, and platform strategy. And sometimes they don't get a guaranteed final chapter to wrap everything up neatly. So even if a storyline feels unfinished, like the one involving Carly's mom, it doesn't always mean there was a dramatic behind-the-scenes issue. Sometimes it just means the continuation never got greenlit at the right time. So when you put everything together, the iCarly reboot didn't really disappear in a dramatic way. It came back as a nostalgic revival, shifted into a more structured storytelling style, dealt with major cast changes, and eventually reached a natural stopping point within how streaming shows are planned today. And that ending that feels like a cliffhanger, that's really what makes the whole thing stick in people's minds, because it doesn't feel like a clean ending. It feels like a pause in a story that could have kept going.